This white was aggressively white. It did its work on everything around it, and nothing escaped. Some would hold the architect responsible. He was a man, it is said, who put it about that his work was minimalist, that his mission was to strip bare and to make pure, architecturally speaking, that his spaces were very direct and very clear, that in them there was no possibility of lying, because they are just what they are. He was lying, of course, telling big white lies, but we will let that pass for the moment. Some would hold this man responsible for the accusatory whiteness that was this great hollow interior, but I suspect that it was the other way around. I suspect that the whiteness was responsible for this architect and for his hollow words. This great white interior was empty even when it was full, because most of what was in it didn't belong in it and would soon be purged from it. This was people mainly, and what they brought with them. Inside this great white interior, few things looked settled, and even fewer looked at home. And those that did look settled also looked like they'd been prepared, approved, trained, disciplined, marshalled. Those things that looked at home looked like they had already been purged from within. In a nutshell, those things that stayed had themselves been made either quite white, quite black, or quite grey. This world was entirely purged of colour. All the walls, ceilings, floors and fittings were white. All the furniture was black, and all the works of art were grey. Not all whites are as tyrannical as this one was, and this one was less tyrannical than some. Is it that by its indefiniteness it shadows forth the heartless voids and immensities of the universe, and thus stabs us from behind with the thought of annihilation when beholding the white depths of the Milky Way? Next to the white that was Herman Melville's great albino whale, this white paled. Next to the deathly, obsessive white that insinuated its way into the dark heart of Joseph Conrad's Captain Marlowe, this white was almost innocent. Admittedly, there was some Conradian residue in this shallower white. Minimalism, it seemed to say, is something you arrive at, a development of the sensitivity of the brain. Civilization started with ornamentation. Look at all that bright colour. The minimalist sensitivity is not the peak of civilization, but it represents a high level between the earth and sky. But this wasn't spoken with the voice of a Marlowe. It contained no irony, no terror born of the recognition that whatever appeared before you now had always seen you before it 1,000 times already. Rather, this was the voice of one of Conrad's Empire functionaries, one of those stiff, starched figures whose certainties always protect them from, and thus always propel them remorselessly towards, the certain oblivion that lies just a page or two ahead. What is it that motivates this fixation with white? First of all, let's get the term minimalism and its careless association with whiteness out of the way. In reality, this didn't occur very often at all, at least in the minimalism that consisted of three-dimensional works of art made during the 1960s, mostly in New York. Certainly, there are a good many skeletal white structures by Sol LeWitt, and Robert Morris was suspicious of colour, so he painted his early work grey, but not white. Dan Flavin used tubes of white light, or rather daylight, or cool white, which is to say whites, not white, but his work was more often than not made in pools of intermingling coloured light, red, blue, green, yellow, orange, and white. Carl Andre, intrinsic colours, the specific colours of specific materials, woods and metals in particular, no whites there to speak of, and Donald Judd, sometimes intrinsic colours, sometimes applied, sometimes both together, sometimes shiny, sometimes transparent, sometimes polished, sometimes matte. Dozens of colours on dozens of surfaces, often in strange combinations, polished copper with shiny purple plexiglass, or brushed aluminium with a glowing translucent red, or spray-painted enamels with galvanized steel, or whatever there was. In truth, the colours of minimal art were often far closer to that of its exact contemporary, pop art, than anything else, which is to say, found colours.